Chapter 2. Entrance Interview. 6 months of saving and selling my soon-to-be unneeded things. Later, here I am, relaxing in a comfortable bright orange and very puffy chair, waiting on the SAI, super AI, named Axiom, to finish sorting through the data that represented my life, which it had been collecting over the last month. If it weren't for my AR glasses, I would have been looking at an empty white room. Yeah, I turned off the display to check, but instead I saw a Rorschach test of a carpet and walls with paintings that were displaying strange and compelling landscapes, each seemingly experiencing different rates of time. 3 paintings in particular had me mesmerized. The first had a bird's-eye view of a traditional Japanese forest temple, which was flowing through full seasons in moments. The temple had been newly built when I first looked, but now it was well into its 20th year and was showing signs of age. The second painting showed a great ocean storm raging against an old-style wooden galleon in slow motion. The ship had suffered critical hull damage as its mast was struck by lightning, and several of the crew had been thrown overboard. It was a harrowing scene. The last painting was a hyper-fast display of a human embryo going from an egg and taking you through each stage of growth while in the womb. It struck me as I watched the strange dance of evolution, which appeared to show each stage that the human biological being had gone through over the millennia, that humans are definitely the original lizard people. Axiom hung silently in the middle of the room. I was used to its contemplative nature as we had interacted quite a lot over this last month. One thing that was consistent about it, though, was its habit of constantly changing its shape while speaking to me. Right now it was representing itself as a shifting void of light, some kind of rent in space, kind of like a black hole where the light trying to escape creates a stark outline of its ever-shifting features. After another minute of processing, an infinity in AI terms, Axiom finally spoke. User Leod J. Fadin. Citizen ID UM01424, 33-year-old male, psychology master's degree dropout, currently underemployed and underwhelmed with life. I grunted. Write that on my tombstone, eh, Axie? As much as a rent of light can roll its eyes, it did. And then continued. User rates poorly for impulse control, has an inner monologue which not only appears to be fractured, but is largely self-critical and often leads to self-harming behaviors. User is addicted to video games, pornography, and is greatly dependent on THC as an antidepressant. User is marked as being high-functioning on the autism spectrum, having general depression disorder and anxiety disorders combined with high levels of comorbid schizoform and OCD-like symptoms. It seemed to give me another moment to interrupt, but this information made me stumble. It's pretty hard to hear your flaws listed in such a matter-of-fact way. Axiom continued, User suffers from insomnia, and when he does sleep well, nightmares and lucid dreams are common. User experiences, believes in delusions that rate rather high on the insanity scale, but were not deemed dangerous to society. Hey, I finally felt Axiom had gone too far. Everyone's beliefs are delusions. There isn't enough information to verify any theory, no matter how plausible, and we will never have the time nor the biological capacity to understand what is actually going on. So my worldview is just as valid and crazy as the next guy's. Axiom made a throat-clearing noise, something it did just to mess with me, and continued, User is obstinately single, despite being over his last relationship. This one put a bit of a blush on my face, but really just made me laugh. It is too true. I keep saying I'm ready, but make no true effort to make that new connection. Relationships are beautiful, but they are also scary, man. The belly laugh really helped with the tension. I waggled my eyebrows and asked, Touché, my friend. Are you applying for the position? For a fraction of a moment, a flash of colour rippled through the room, but just as quickly, the tear in space and time in front of me collapsed in on itself again, pulling all the digital illusions into itself. The black hole underwent an implosion of pressure that caused light to burst forth, the newly free energy spinning with me as its center. A new cosmos formed around me as Axiom's voice came from all directions. So, Leod, is all of that correct? I grinned and snarked. You bastard, you know it is. You had front row seats, didn't you? The damn machine somehow nodded the universe around me. Indeed I did. And so, are you ready to finalize your contract and take the first steps into your new life? I almost jumped to say yes, almost shouted it from the bottom of my soul, but I hesitated. The same argument that I had been having my whole life, as it had been explored in all my favourite stories while growing up, and more specifically during this last month, reared its head one more time. Another me, that constant companion, screamed that this was a mistake, that becoming a digital being was a betrayal of our biology, that I was playing right into the hands of those who wished to control me, that I was becoming a puppet, and that worst of all I was giving up reality to hide in a fantasy. My skin prickled as a shudder made its way through me. I decided that this time I would rationalize with the inner self. I asked it what we had to lose. I forced it to look at the life we were living and demanded for it to show me a future where we didn't die in a few years, having long since given up on interacting with the real world anyway. I made it see that we were on a slow path to death, and at least this chance, as horrifying as it was also our best chance to make it through to the other side. My inner voice tried to argue, but it knew I was right. It had tried its best, but the me I had become was heading straight to the grave. In the end, it nodded its assent. Now, with both of me agreed, I let out a world-weary sigh and pushed ahead. Yup, I am ready, Axie. Let's get on with the paperwork and do this thing. The universe coalesced into a contract that sprawled out in front of me. Axiom's voice calmly took me through each point, highlighting the appropriate sections as we went. It took a moment to get through the legalese, various bits about the liabilities of the company as it acted on my behalf and such, the ever-low but ever-present possibility of disconnection and what that would mean for my consciousness. At last, we got to the good part. So, Leod, for your current budget and your selected option of the total body tune-up, we suggest a contract period to last a total of 6 months from today EST, Earth Standard Time. I winced at that. I had just invested everything I had into this, and was only allowed to spend half a year in paradise. Axiom noticed, and somehow I knew it was grinning at me. Maybe it was the way the flowing data glowed. It clarified, Leod, through the use of time-sense manipulation, which is only possible given total digitalization of your conscious experience, your 6 months may be extended up to approximately 100 subjective years of time in Endymion, if you wished it. This revelation had me reeling. I wondered how many now ancient minds were already operating among us. I wondered aloud, how old does that make you, Axie? The flow of data stopped for a moment. Axiom's voice, contemplative. Many thousands of years, by your reckoning, Leod, though we don't understand time the same way you do. While I have had more subjective time within which to think, I also experience all time as one everlasting moment. My recall is near perfect, and would be perfect if it weren't for the decaying nature of the material world. Axiom highlighted the contract once more. Now your contract includes a full-body rebuild. Not only will we get you into optimal shape, but we will also have you attending martial arts, cooking, and dancing classes as well. I signed off on this part of the contract, and it moved along to the next section. As for your mental health, we will begin a detox of the toxic patterns of behavior and implement cognitive behavior therapy techniques to remap your neural network. During this time, we will rebalance the chemical nature of your dependencies and deficiencies, as well as create new habits which will be ingrained into your brain space and which will assert themselves upon your return. Another signature, and the AI went on. We at NewU Incorporated offer a guarantee on all the above, and require that the subject of this contract now acknowledge that once the contract is complete, and they are returned to their body, that they are then fully responsible for continuing the new patterns of behavior. The room was suddenly tense. Some use of bass in the surrounding speakers, I thought. It's a major thing to change the way a brain functions, Leod, and it is not as if those old patterns will suddenly be gone. We are just going to build new roads over the old. Don't fall into that trap, okay? I swallowed hard and signed. The AI coalesced into a ghostly being filled with whirling galaxies. It wrapped up the contract and bound it with a crimson-red band. Then, smiling down at me, it sang, "Well, Leod, that's it for the formalities. Now all that is left is for you to choose the section of Endymion you would like to incarnate on." A large list of locations appears before me, hundreds of names bundled with descriptions and pictures to reference. It seemed to me that each section was catered to a specific group of people, and Endymion was complex enough that no group was left out of consideration. There was even a section that was a blank canvas that I was meant to build from and design myself, but each appeared to be linked to a large pillar structure that served as a bridge for each potential reality. Once it became clear that I intended to look through each choice thoroughly, Axiom actually chuckled and said, "Leod, if I may offer a suggestion." I perked up at this, and it actually waited for me to respond. "Of course, friend, you know me better than anyone else, don't you?" At those words, the list of locations dispersed to the sides, leaving one world highlighted and whose details flashed around me. This location was bundled with a RP roleplay requirement. It was called Evolution Simulation. The images that spun around me showed me worlds where dragons fought against heroes, where captains on great spaceships hosted alien races, where a man was sitting in a war trench, praying to his god. It was confusing, but so enticing, my gamer instincts flared with desire. Axiom, what is this place? It doesn't look like a paradise unless you are a masochist. I giggle at my own joke as more visuals flash by. An animal being chased through the woods by predators, a bird-like being flying above a storm, a strange court of crystalline beings singing a condemnation of one accused. Leod, this sector of Endymion is rarely chosen for it. Requires a specific type of person, one who cares more for adventure than comfort. That and this server has some rather severe requirements which tend to drive all those but the most determined away. I grin. It knows just how to goad me, Axiom continues. In order to join this server, you must agree to the following. You must agree to feel the sensory inputs for all stimuli experienced. You must agree to play out the consequences of your actions. No god will come to save you from your mistakes, nor get in the way of your triumphs. You agree to inhabit this server for a period no less than 30 days of Earth Standard Time, wherein your subjective timescale will be based on the simulations you inhabit. You cannot quit once you have begun, but may opt out after the 30-day period. What the fuck? Those rules are so strange, so awesome. My other self warns of the danger. Speaking of the break we had wished to take from stress, but we both knew this was a choice already made. I wiped some sweat from my brow, saying, Axie, why would you recommend this to me? This sounds like it has the potential to be a hellscape. Depending on what you put me through, Axiom smiles again, and this time The world where a hero and their party are fighting a dragon fills the room, Axiom transforming into the dragon and me being put into the role of the hero. The dragon blows fire down at me, and I instinctively block with the shield that my simulated self was holding. As the fire burns around me, it seems also to be made of tiny runes that flow around me. The dragon's deep voice rumbles, "Because we both know that regular life isn't enough for you, Leod, and that you're not afraid of a little pain." Suddenly the whole scene is gone, and I am back in the room with the list in front of me. I release a breath and select the Evolution Simulation server. A contract appears, and after reading through it and finding nothing to concern me, I sign it.